Hello ESL Center faculty. This is Dr. Jeff Judge, and I want to give you a mini tutorial about how to reduce grade haggling from students. If you've been teaching here, you know students inevitably try to negotiate their grades with you. They try to ask you to improve their grades whether they deserve it or not. And so I want to talk about this. So let's look at some tips. First of all, your syllabus. You need to start your class on the right foot by having everything about grades clearly explained right from the beginning. There should be no doubt in the students' minds how they get their grade. And also have the syllabus available on Blackboard. And during the first couple weeks of class, especially since you have students come in late, show them where it is online. You do not need to copy out and hand out their syllabus and give it to them. What I would do is just put it on Blackboard. I do not print out my syllabus to the students. I just show them where it is. So for example, you know how to go onto Blackboard, click Blackboard, and then you go into your course, and then I have it right here, right in my course content, so that the students can see where it is. I show them, I click it, I open it, and I do that during class so they know exactly where it is. The next thing you can do is to return all assignments with constructive feedback. Try to have a goal of 2 days. So any kind of assessed activity, a test, a weekly test, not the final exam, you have more time for the final exam, but for any kind of weekly tests or assignments, constructive feedback within 2 days. One of the main complaints I get from students is that they don't get enough feedback from their teachers. Sometimes they say they don't get any feedback. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but you do need to give them feedback. That's how they do learn. That's how they see their mistakes. And that is a question of time management for teachers. So make sure you're on top of giving their feedback to the students as soon as possible. Now, another very important thing in number 4, this will reduce the number of students who will come to you or come to me because of surprises, and that is to have a running total of grades available throughout the module, preferably using Blackboard or another online grade book, whatever you like, but do not surprise the students at the last week of class. Students should know week by week what their grades are. They should not be surprised of where they're heading throughout the course. Imagine you're a student and it's a 7-week class or a semester-long class and you have no idea what your grade is until the last week before the exam. It's really not fair to the students. So you need to have a running total. Show the students where it is. I use Blackboard. Other people use Ngrade. Use what you're comfortable with, but it needs to be very clear. The next thing you need to do is to make your deadlines for any activity very, very clear and stick to them. I want to show you an example from one of my classes. Now, I taught a college writing class, and this is an example of what I showed students. I had an essay that was due, and I would tell them, I would put this on my PowerPoint, and I would explain it to them, and I would tell them that the essay is due November 7th at 2:15, because that's when my class begins. Now, I told them how I wanted it presented, that I wanted it in hard copy, and that I did not want it emailed. So I'm explaining when it's due, what time exactly, and how it's to be presented to me. Now, I knew if I did not give a window of time, people would inevitably come at 2:30, 2:45, 3 o'clock and want to hand it in. So predicting that, I would simply say to them, I will mark 5 points off if received November 7th after 2:20, and then 10 additional points off for each day late. Now then I thought, well, what happens after 3 days or 4 days or 5 days? I don't want to be keeping track of students trying to hand an assignment 8 days later, and then I have to go back and calculate how many 5 points off of each day that I have to reduce. So I gave them a last ultimatum day that they would receive the maximum credit of 105 out of 150 points for this essay if they had handed it in up to November 12th. So you have to kind of think ahead. What are you going to accept and what you're not going to accept, and then simply stick to it. Here's another example of this is the same class. I told them when a final draft was due. I told them the day, the time frame, where. This was a final essay handed in. I told them that they would get points deducted if it was after 3:30, 10 points, and then for every 24 hours later, another 10 points. This was my own policy for this class. And another thing is, in this example, the first example, I had some students come at 2:30. I did not preach at them. I did not condescend. I did not tell them, I'm going to mark it late now. I simply said, thank you very much. I collected it, and I wrote at the top of their paper, late, and then I simply deducted 5 points for being late. The next day I gave it back to them, corrected with my feedback. I didn't say anything about it because they already knew what to expect. There was no need to enter into the negotiation. With any of your deadlines, I always explain it in written format and verbal format. Do not simply finish your class saying, okay, this is due tomorrow at 2:15. You'll be lucky if 70% of the class followed that. So make sure you have it written down. You can use Blackboard, send an email to your students after class. You're just covering your own back by providing written and verbal communication about your deadlines. And finally, the other thing to reduce grade haggling would be to plan ahead for all evaluated tasks. Other complaints that I sometimes get from students is that a teacher all of a sudden seemed a little bit unprepared and last minute pulled out an activity or an assignment for them to do and said, oh, this is due tomorrow. Or the teacher realizes that they are missing some evaluated activities, and then towards the end of the module they pick up the pace and start reducing the amount of time between tasks. Make sure you're giving them plenty of time. Now, I'm not saying baby them, but I'm saying that you need to give them plenty of time to be able to complete their activities. Okay, so I hope this helps. You really have to be communicating throughout the module as much as possible about your policies, about your deadlines, about what you expect, and most of all, you have to stick to it. If you do that, and your students still complain, you can feel free to refer them to me. But I need you to do your job. I need you to follow through. I need you to make it very clear what you expect so that I can back you up and support you with your work.